I walked into the house quietly. Everyone was already there. My mother sat on the couch, sipping her tea like it was just another day. My brother scrolled through his phone. My sister whispered to her husband and smiled. No one looked at me. I sat down in the corner, like always, keeping to myself. The lawyer arrived and opened his folder. The room slowly became silent. My hands rested in my lap, steady but cold. I had spent the last 2 years taking care of my father, feeding him, helping him bathe, sitting beside him at night when he couldn't sleep. I believed he would remember that. The lawyer started reading the will. To my son, David, I leave the savings account. David leaned back and nodded like it was no surprise. To my daughter, Sarah, I leave the car and the jewelry box. Sarah smiled and reached for her husband's hand. To my wife, I leave the family home. My mother gave a small nod, like everything was going exactly the way it should. The lawyer turned to the last page. His voice stopped. He looked up. That's it, he said. I waited. My name hadn't been said. I looked at him. What about me? I asked. He checked the papers again. There's no mention of you, he said. The room stayed quiet. No one said a word. I looked at my mother. She stared at the floor. My brother didn't even glance my way. My sister just raised her eyebrows like she felt sorry, but not really. I asked again. Nothing? He didn't leave me anything. The lawyer shook his head. I'm sorry. My chest felt tight. I looked around the room. No one looked surprised. They had known. They all knew. David finally spoke. Dad probably thought you'd just waste it, Sarah added. Come on, you don't need to make this into a big deal. My mother still said nothing. I stood up slowly. My legs were stiff. I looked at them one last time. I had been there when Dad got sick. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who held his hand when he could barely talk. And now I was nothing to them. I understand, I said. My mother looked up, but I didn't stop to hear what she'd say. I walked out of the house. I closed the door behind me. My steps were steady, my face calm. They thought they had shut me out. They thought I would disappear. But they were wrong. They had made their move. Now it was my turn. When we were growing up, it was always clear who the favorite was. My brother could do no wrong. If he came home late, no one asked questions. If I made a small mistake, I got yelled at. He got praise for things I had already done 100 times. My mother always defended him. My father said I was too sensitive when I pointed it out. Over time, I stopped trying to explain. I just stayed quiet. Even then, I didn't stop caring. When Dad got sick, I was the one who stayed. I left my job to be with him full time. I missed birthdays, weddings, and holidays with friends. I barely went outside. I cooked his meals, gave him his medicine, cleaned up when he was too weak to move. Every time he struggled to breathe, I sat next to him and held his hand. There were days when he couldn't speak, but he still looked at me like he understood I was there. He once looked at me and said, "Don't worry. I'll take care of you in the will." His voice was low and tired, but I remember every word. I believed him. I didn't ask for much. I didn't want money or anything big. I just wanted to know I mattered to him. A few weeks before he passed, my brother started visiting more often. He brought flowers. He brought food he didn't cook. He smiled and sat by the bed like he had always been there. He spoke to Dad in a soft voice when I wasn't in the room. I didn't know what they were talking about. I wanted to believe it was nothing, but something felt off. Dad started pulling away. He stopped saying much when I was near. Sometimes he'd close his eyes when I entered, like he didn't want to see me. I asked him once, "Is everything okay?" He nodded, but I didn't believe him. I wanted to ask more, but I felt stupid. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I was just scared. After Dad died, I remembered that promise. It stayed in my head while I sat with my mother and brother. They looked calm. I felt nervous but hopeful. The lawyer opened the folder and read the will. My name was not there. Not even a sentence. My brother got the money. He got the house. My mother didn't look surprised. She placed her hand on his shoulder like he had done something right. I stared at the floor. I tried to understand how this happened. I had no proof, but I felt something had been taken from me. I remembered Dad's words. "I'll take care of you." I had believed him. I trusted him. I sat there, quiet, listening to them talk like everything was normal. My chest felt heavy. I kept waiting for someone to say my name. No one did. It wasn't just about the money or the house. It was the feeling that I didn't matter. That all those nights, all those sacrifices meant nothing. My brother smiled like he had won something. Maybe he had. I walked out when it was done. I didn't look back. Something inside me had changed. I wasn't angry. I was hurt. And I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. After I walked out of the house, I stayed quiet. They thought I would disappear. They thought I would just accept what happened. But I didn't. I couldn't. Something inside me kept turning, like a small fire that refused to go out. I didn't yell. I didn't argue, but I started thinking. They were still fighting over Dad's old house. It was a big place full of memories and worth a lot. They all wanted it. No one wanted to share. They argued about it every day. I heard from a cousin that they were talking about going to court. Each one believed they had the right to it. They were too busy trying to outdo each other to see what was really going on. I started asking questions. Quietly, I went to the city office and looked up records. I searched through files, looked at names, dates, anything I could find. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I kept going. Then I saw something strange. The house wasn't in my father's name anymore. At least, not in the way they thought. Years ago, during the divorce with my mother, my father moved the house into something called a holding company. It was a legal move, probably to protect the house during the fight. He never changed it back. That company still owned it, and the company wasn't listed in the will. No one had noticed. They thought the house would pass to them automatically. They thought it was simple, but it wasn't. I went to a real estate lawyer and asked for advice. I showed the documents. He looked through them and said, "This house can be sold. It doesn't belong to your siblings unless the company says so." We kept it quiet. I didn't tell anyone in the family. They were busy filing claims and hiring lawyers, thinking it was just a matter of time before they got the house. They never checked the full ownership. They never bothered. They thought they already won. A few weeks later, the house went up for sale. It was quiet, just a small public listing. My siblings saw the notice but didn't take it seriously. They thought it was some paperwork issue. They believed they could stop it. "We'll handle it in court," I heard my brother say to someone. "It's ours." I didn't say anything. I stayed in the background, watched them talk like they still had control. But they didn't. They never looked deeper. They never asked the right questions. They just assumed everything would go their way, because it always had. They didn't know I had already started taking steps. The lawyer helped me prepare. The sale would move fast, and they wouldn't see it coming. They laughed at me when I walked out of that while reading. They thought I was finished, but I was already one step ahead. I sat at the small office desk with my lawyer beside me. The papers were in front of me. The house was finally ready to be sold. I had done all the work, and now it was time to finish it. The name on the papers wasn't mine. It was the name of the small company I created just for this. No one would know it was me. That was the plan. Quiet, simple, clean. I signed every page slowly. My hands didn't shake. My face didn't show anything. Inside, I felt calm. I had waited for this. I didn't need to tell anyone. I didn't need to prove anything to them. I bought the house. Every room, every step, every brick. It was mine now. A few months before, I wasn't even sure I could do it. But I had been saving for years. While they laughed at me for working late shifts, I was putting money away. While they said I was wasting time with side jobs, I was planning. I sold old stuff online, fixed up secondhand furniture, worked weekends, and didn't take vacations. Every dollar counted. I learned how to invest. I made small, smart moves. I didn't show off. I just kept going. They used to call me the poor one. They joked behind my back. "You'll never catch up," my brother once said with a laugh. My sister said I was boring. My mother said I lived too small. But they didn't know what I was building. They didn't see the work. I never told them. I didn't need to. While they were still fighting about the house, I was meeting with the lawyer. They were yelling at each other over who deserved what. They were sending angry texts and hiring people to talk for them. They thought the house would come to them if they shouted loud enough. None of them thought to check who really owned it. None of them thought someone like me could ever buy it. But I did. When I finished signing the last page, the lawyer looked at me and said, "It's done." I nodded. That was all. No celebration. No cheering. I walked out of the office with the keys in my hand and the papers in my bag. I took a deep breath outside. The sky was cloudy, but I felt light. The house was mine now. They didn't know. Not yet. I didn't tell anyone. Not a word. I watched from a distance as they kept fighting. My brother said he had more right to it. My sister said she needed it more. My mother just told them both to be patient. They thought they were in charge. They thought someone else had made a mistake with the sale. They believed they would fix it with lawyers and phone calls. I stayed quiet. I waited for the right moment. Every day, they argued over something that didn't belong to them any. They had no idea the person they cut out was the one holding the keys. They called me weak. They called me forgettable. They never thought I would fight back in my own way. But I had. And I was just getting started. They thought the house was still theirs. After the sale, they didn't ask questions. They just moved in. No one stopped them, so they believed they still had control. My brother brought his bags and claimed the main bedroom. My sister took the guest room and filled it with her clothes and shoes. They didn't talk about sharing. They were both sure they owned it. They said it was just temporary until things were settled in court. But I knew they had no case. Still, I stayed quiet. I wanted to see what they would do. They started changing the place. My brother painted the living room. My sister bought new curtains and threw out old furniture. They acted like the house was a prize they had won. They started posting photos online. My brother took pictures of the living room, standing proudly with a drink in his hand. He wrote, "Finally claiming what's ours." My sister posted a photo from the garden with the caption, "Love our new home." Friends and cousins commented, saying how lucky they were. They smiled like nothing could touch them. They threw a party on the weekend. Loud music, lots of people. Cars lined the street. They laughed, danced, and gave tours of the house like it belonged to them forever. Someone even gave a toast to family inheritance. I watched it all from a distance. I didn't stop them. I let them play house. Then they planned a barbecue. They invited more friends and neighbors. They brought out lawn chairs, grilled food, and took more photos. My brother posted a video of him flipping burgers, saying, "Best decision we ever made." My sister showed off the backyard on her stories like she was proud of what she stole. They didn't know the truth. My name wasn't on anything public. The papers all led back to the company I used. They had no idea I was behind it. To them, I was still the sibling who got nothing. I wasn't part of their plan. That's exactly how I wanted it. Then my brother got a new idea. He wanted to rent out part of the house. "It'll pay for itself," he said. He took photos of the guest room, the kitchen, and the front door. He made an Airbnb listing. My sister helped write the description. They set a price and got excited about extra money. That's when I moved. I sent everything to my lawyer, the posts, the listing, the photos. They were living in a house they didn't own. They had no lease, no rights, nothing in writing. They thought they were clever, but they had walked into the trap themselves. I stayed quiet just long enough. Now it was time for them to find out. It was a quiet morning when I arrived. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I brought the real estate agent and the sheriff's deputy with me. We parked on the street, just a few houses away. I could already hear music coming from the backyard. They were having another get-together. Laughter, music, and the smell of grilled food filled the air. My brother was in the backyard, cooking at the grill. My sister was sitting with her friends, laughing loudly. More people were inside the house. I could see someone walking through the hallway with a drink in hand. They looked comfortable, like they truly believed this house was theirs. I walked up to the front door with the papers in hand. The sheriff and agent followed right behind me. My heart was calm. No anger. No nerves. Just quiet steps and a clear mind. I knocked once. My sister opened the door. Her smile faded the moment she saw me. She looked behind me and noticed the uniform. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "Good morning," I said simply. "We're here on official business." Before she could speak, I stepped inside. The sheriff showed his badge and followed. The real estate agent held the file with the deed, the company name, and every legal paper we had prepared. People inside the house started to look up. The music stopped. My brother walked in from the back, confused. "What's going on?" he asked. I turned to face them. "You need to leave," I said. "You're trespassing." My sister's face turned pale. "What do you mean? This is our house." "No," I said. "It's not. It was sold. It belongs to a company now. I own that company." The agent opened the folder and showed the papers. The sheriff explained the situation in simple terms. "This property is owned by the person standing here. You have no legal right to be in this house. You need to gather your things and leave today." There was silence. Then my brother laughed, but it sounded nervous. "This has to be a mistake," he said. "He's lying. He can't afford this place." My sister stepped forward. "You tricked us," she said, her voice rising. "You waited until we moved in and then did this. You're evil." I didn't reply. I just looked at her. Calm. No shouting. No smile. Just facts. "You were too busy fighting each other," I said. "You didn't check the paperwork. You thought you owned it, but you never did." My brother walked up to the agent, trying to grab the papers. The sheriff stepped between them and warned him not to touch anything. "I'm your family," my sister cried. "You really want to kick us out?" I looked around at the crowd. Some of their friends had already started to leave. A few looked embarrassed. No one spoke. "You left me out," I said. "Now I'm leaving you out." My mother came in from the kitchen. Her eyes were wide. She looked at me, then at the papers. "You bought it," she whispered. I nodded once. She didn't say anything else. The sheriff gave them 2 hours to pack. I left before they were done. I didn't stay to watch. I didn't need to. This wasn't revenge. It was just what they had earned. After they left the house, the messages started. First it was my sister. She sent a long text asking how I bought the place. Then she asked why I never said anything. She said it wasn't fair, that I tricked them. I didn't answer. I just read the messages and put my phone down. Later, my brother called me. I didn't pick up. He called again, then again. Finally, he left a voice message. He asked if we could meet and talk. He said it was all a misunderstanding. He didn't sound angry anymore. He sounded tired. Some cousins started messaging me too. "What happened?" one asked. "How did you even get the money?" another said. "Why didn't you tell us?" someone else asked. They all acted surprised, like I had done something wrong just by being smart and quiet. One day, my aunt called. She asked if it was true that I own the house now. I told her yes. She asked how. I just said, I worked for it. Then she asked why I didn't warn anyone. I paused for a second and said, "They skipped me." So I skipped them. She didn't ask anything else after that. Soon, people started talking. My brother's friends, the ones who always called him the successful one, found out what happened. They laughed behind his back. My sister's social media posts stopped. She deleted the pictures of the house. She stopped bragging. She disappeared online for a while. I heard through someone that my brother had to move in with his ex. He couldn't afford rent after losing the house. They didn't last long. He moved again, this time to a small apartment. My sister tried to take me to court. She said the house should be shared. Her lawyer sent a letter. My lawyer answered with facts and documents. She had no case. She dropped it. No one said anything after that. I sat alone in the house one evening. The lights were soft, and it was quiet. I made tea and looked around. The walls were the same, but it felt different. It felt peaceful. No more shouting. No more fake smiles. No one pretending to care. Just silence. I fixed the garden. I cleaned every room. I bought a small couch, not fancy, just enough. I didn't need much. This house wasn't about showing off. It was about making it mine. Every corner felt earned. Sometimes neighbors waved at me. A few asked if the story they heard was true. I just smiled and said, something like that. Inside, I felt light. I didn't take anything from them. I simply took what they never thought I could. This house was never a gift. It was my quiet answer to being forgotten. It had been quiet for weeks. The house finally felt like mine. I cleaned slowly, one room at a time. One day, I opened the storage closet near the back of the house. It was full of old boxes. Some were covered in dust. Others looked untouched for years. I sat on the floor and began opening them. Most had photo albums, books, and broken tools. Then I found a small wooden box. It was locked, but the lock was weak. I opened it with a hairpin. Inside were letters, some yellow from age, others newer. They were all written by my father. Some were to friends, some to a lawyer, and a few to me. He never gave me these letters. Maybe he planned to, but never did. I read one where he talked about being proud of me. He wrote about the times I took care of him. He said I was patient and strong. Then I found a different envelope. It was marked Will, first copy. I opened it. My hands were steady, but my heart was not. It was a will typed out and signed. In it, he left the house and most of his things to me. Only a small amount was written for my sibling. I stared at the paper for a long time. This wasn't the will that had been read after his death. That one didn't even mention my name. This one said clearly, I was his choice. This was dated 6 months before he passed. I kept reading. At the bottom, there was a note in his handwriting. It said, "If anything happens, this is what I want." I put it aside and kept going through the box. I found a journal. It was his. Inside, he had written small entries during his final months. One page stood out. It said my sibling had been visiting often, always alone, always closing the door. Another page said, "They want me to change the will. I'm tired. I don't want to fight." I closed the journal and sat back. It made sense now. They had pushed him. They had changed his mind when he was weak. He didn't forget me. He didn't leave me out. They had taken what he planned to give me, but they had failed in the end. I could have used the will. I could have shown it to everyone. I could have started a new fight, dragged them through more shame. But I didn't want more noise. I didn't want more people in my life asking questions. I went outside. It was cold but quiet. I lit a small fire in the metal barrel behind the house. I dropped the letters in one by one. Then the will. Then the journal. The paper curled and turned black. The smoke rose and disappeared into the sky. I watched until the fire was out. He had tried. I knew that now. That was enough. I didn't need to prove anything. I had the house. I had the truth. That was the end of it. It had been many months since the house became quiet. I was living alone at peace. I cooked my own meals, cleaned the house, and worked quietly from my desk. The air felt fresh, and every room smelled like freedom. Then one morning, I heard a knock. I opened the door and saw my brother. He stood there holding a bag of food and wearing a fake smile. He said he just wanted to talk. I let him sit outside on the porch. He looked around like he missed the place. Then he began talking about the past, acting like nothing had happened. He said we were still family and that we should move on. He talked about starting fresh. I stayed quiet and listened. A few days later, my sister showed up. She looked tired, dressed in clothes she usually would never wear. She smiled in a sad way and hugged me without asking. She said she was sorry, that she made mistakes. She told me she was different now, and that she missed me. She said maybe we could live together again like the old days. Her words were soft, but her eyes kept looking around the house. I didn't believe her. I didn't believe any of them. They didn't come because they missed me. They came because they had nowhere else to go. I knew from neighbors that my brother had lost his job. My sister's friends had stopped supporting her after the house drama. Their lives were hard now. They wanted back in, not for love, but for comfort. So, I decided to test them. The next time they came, I set my phone on the table and pressed record. I asked simple questions. Why now? What changed? My sister talked about how she deserved part of the house. She said it wasn't fair that I kept it all. My brother said I had tricked them and should feel guilty. They kept talking, forgetting the lies they told before. When they left, I watched the video. Their voices were clear. Their fake kindness turned cold when they thought I would say no. I didn't cry or feel hurt. I felt calm. Later that week, I posted the video online. I didn't show their faces, but the story was clear. I titled it, "How My Family Betrayed Me and Got Kicked Out of the House They Stole." I told the truth from start to end. I didn't add anything extra. I just shared what really happened. People saw it. They understood. Some sent kind words. Others shared their own stories of family betrayal. My siblings stayed quiet after that. They never knocked again. Maybe they were ashamed. Maybe they finally understood. I looked out the window at the garden. The wind moved gently through the trees. I stood there for a while, holding a cup of warm tea. They came back because they wanted something, but I didn't give it to them. I gave them nothing, and I kept everything I earned. I walked from room to room, slowly fixing what had been left broken for years. The walls had old paint peeling off, the tiles in the hallway were cracked, and some of the windows wouldn't open right. I didn't complain. I picked a room, took my time, and worked with my own hands. No workers. No help. Just me and the work in front of me. The living room came first. I painted it soft beige, changed the old curtains, and bought a second-hand couch. I placed a small lamp in the corner and added a rug to warm the space. In the kitchen, I fixed the cabinet doors that never closed properly. I scrubbed the sink until it shone and planted herbs by the window. Every little job brought the place back to life. I fixed the bathroom tiles. I cleaned the grime off the bathtub. I repaired the leaking faucet. One by one, things came back to order. I didn't try to make the place fancy. I just wanted it clean, peaceful, and mine. Outside, I pulled out weeds with my bare hand. I dug up dead plants and planted bright flowers. Yellow ones, red ones, soft purple ones. I trimmed the trees, mowed the lawn, and added a small bench under the old tree in the yard. It became my favorite spot. Neighbors began to notice. One waved and said, "Place looks good." A woman from down the street stopped by with a small basket of cookies. "Glad someone's finally giving this place love," she said. I thanked her with a quiet smile. People began to talk, not in gossip, but with kindness. They heard bits of what happened, the truth of it, and they respected the choice I made. No one asked for the full story. They didn't need to. They saw it in the care I put into the house. This wasn't revenge. I wasn't showing off. I wasn't proving anything. I was building something honest. One morning, just as the sun was starting to rise, I stood outside with a warm mug in my hand. The sky turned soft orange, and the air felt still. A friend who stayed the night stepped out beside me. They watched the light growing across the yard and said, "Was it worth everything you went through?" I looked toward the garden, the flowers blooming near the steps, the trees swaying gently above the bench, and the work I had done without asking for anyone's praise. I didn't have to think long. I turned to them and said, "It wasn't revenge. It was justice." And that's what it really was. I didn't do all this to win. I didn't take this place to hurt anyone. I made it mine with effort, care, and patience. It wasn't a trophy. It was a home. Something built from what was broken. Something honest. Something lasting. Turning heartbreak into peace isn't easy. Some call it strength. Others see it as shutting the door for good. Was it the right move or just self-protection? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. If these kinds of stories speak to you, subscribe and hit the bell so you stay updated.